these are from Outraged Fairfax. I requested and received a copy of your safety report on the smart meters, and I read every page. And I have no doubt that smart meters comply with the FCC standards. The issue I have is with the FCC standards themselves. And I feel that it is your responsibility to verify their relevance and their accuracy before imposing the meters on the public. And I would like to know what studies done by the FCC have you reviewed that have examined the long-term effects of smart meters on the public. I did not see any long-term studies cited in your report, and I have serious questions about the FCC standards themselves.
Yeah, I think in short, we're not the FCC, obviously, and we rely on certain regulatory bodies like the FCC and CPUC to have their expertise, and then we live within those bounds. So, as a statement, I'll start with that. In terms of other reports that we've looked at, if I'm understanding your question, to kind of test the FCC's position on things, or just other reports that have been out there?
Well, I do feel that it's your
Hold on, your mic.
Just if you would, sure.
Did it go on?
Yeah.
That it's your responsibility to verify that the standards you're following are, in fact, in favor of our safety. And if they have no long-term studies, if the FCC has no long-term studies on these meters, I would be very hesitant to implement them myself if I were in your position. And I'd like to know if you can cite any studies by the FCC that have reviewed the long-term effects of exposure to smart meters.
Well, let me just say, we, PG&E, have no reason to not believe what the FCC is setting, but when we look at microhertz and see if there's anything more to add to that, or...
The limits that the FCC enforces are actually established by other governmental bodies. EPA, FDA, OSHA, NIOSH. They also look to IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, and also the NCRP. That's where the standards are. If you're looking for the specific studies and what they looked at to determine what levels they would use for standards, those are the organizations that specifically researched all the research that's been done and determine when safety levels are necessary, and that's how we got the safety levels. The same thing can be done for the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, based in Europe, commonly referred to as ICNIR, also the World Health Organization. If you'd like, I'd be happy to direct you to their websites that has the information and the review of the literature. The ICNIR organization just came out with it's a couple hundred pages of research looking at all aspects of radio frequency exposure in 2009. So I'd be happy to direct you to that. It's also on our website. It's referenced on our website. Those are the organizations and bodies that establish the need for these specific standards, and that's who certainly the FCC looks to when determining the limits that they will enforce.
Okay, so these are studies. These are studies that you have reviewed that determine over a long period of time these smart meters are safe.
They look at, again, they're looking at things like cell phones, other much higher exposure than what we're talking about with the smart meters. I mean, the much higher exposures are going to be based on things that you hold up next to your body, and that's the majority of research that has taken place to assume that something that's, 1,000 times lower is going to cause a problem versus something that's 1,000 times higher. The majority of research that's been going on for the last 20 years has looked specifically at cell phones, because again, cell phones, you hold them up to your head and you don't measure your usage of cell phones in seconds. You measure your usage, well, if you're me, you measure it in terms of hours. But people commonly measure their usage in minutes. So it's a much longer, much closer, intimate exposure. That's where the research is, and that's what they're looking at. And if you look at the World Health Organization, long-term studies over various lengths of time, 10 years, they have not come to the conclusion that exposure from cell phones causes detrimental human health problems at this point. Research is obviously continuing, but again, that's for a much higher exposure.
Okay, but as a non-scientist, I would not immediately assume that lower exposures over longer periods would be less harmful. I would want to know for sure before I expose the public to that. And I would like to see the studies that you've seen, and you were kind enough to send me the others. I'd love to read these new ones. I'm not convinced that the FCC standards in this case are really safe and well enough. Thank you.
My name is Diane Hoffman, 33 Porteous in Fairfax. And currently, the Marin Association of Realtors is working on writing up brand new disclosures about smart meters. Not only, the problems if you have a smart meter and the fears that people have, but also about those antennas you're putting up. And there are 4 in Fairfax. And when I saw the addresses, one of them sounded very familiar, and I went and I looked at it, and it was right in front of a home that I had sold 3 years ago to a family with 4 children. And of course, if they want to ever sell that home, that is going to have to be disclosed. They're having basically a little mini cell phone tower in front of their home. Property values have gone down, and for people who have those antennas in front of their homes, it's really bad. I mean, that is going to affect the sale of their home tremendously, and the price is definitely going to go down. I also want to ask, can I see the hands again of all the PG&E people or people connected with PG&E? Okay, what I would like all of you to do is get the film, and some of you have seen it a long time ago, but get it again, Aaron Brockovich. This is the company you are supporting, and this is a company you're working for. Nothing you say I can believe, and it's not your fault. You're puppets. You're working for that company, and you work for the PCC, right? Who do you work for? Yeah. When I was in San Francisco at your meeting, I went up to you, and I was really worried about the smart meter, and I said I really would like a choice if I have to have a smart meter. And you looked at me smiling. You do have a choice. And I got my hopes up. And I said, how? And you said, you don't have to have gas or electricity. You are in bed with PG&E.
Evening. Stephanie Kramer, San Francisco. I am an electrician. So out of the full spectrum of concerns that people have legitimately, I'd like to just address the smaller spectrum. I am inside wireman and 31 years last month. In that time, I've worked extensively in Marin, Sonoma, San Francisco. And I can tell you from personal experience that every type of wiring system from Thomas Edison forward exists somewhere in our Bay Area. And it's functioning quite nicely, thank you, provided that it's not tampered with and maintained properly. I will say that the smart meters and everything having to do with PG&E has been the object of my attention for many years because it's not esoteric, it's whether or not my hand gets blown off. I pay attention to what PG&E does. And I was very interested because my work has gone all the way from residential work through traffic lights to 400 cycles to the airport to heavy industrial like water treatment plants. So I've seen your work and your workers, and for the most part they're honorable people. I have to wonder about the company. I began paying particular attention a little bit better than a decade ago when I was working downtown San Francisco and one of your walls blew up and took a young woman with it. She survived. Since then, there have been better than a dozen that I can document of similar vault fires. I took the opportunity the following couple of days to talk to your crews who were working repairing the damage. It was a mixture of cable splicers and linemen, and I had a chance to speak to my brother electricians. And one of their concerns was that your corporation had cut back on the maintenance crews by 50 to 75%. And they predicted then that there would be more problems with vault fires because people weren't doing the cleanup, they weren't doing the maintenance, they weren't checking the insulators, they weren't doing their business because the bottom line had taken precedence and the maintenance wasn't going on.
I respect what you're saying.
Well, then let me finish. I'm using this as a barometer to judge you as a corporation when you assure us that you are concerned about public safety. So, to come forward in time, I've been talking to your Wellington people, I'm a certified electrician. To do my work, I'm required by the state of California to have that ticket. Every 2 years, I must recertify. The people you hire in Arlington, they're not qualified electricians. They get 2 weeks training, and they're sent into the field to deal with installations that go from Thomas Edison forward. There are at least 30 incidents here in California of fires that are being investigated in relation to your meters, either the meters themselves or your installation. In addition, there have been several dozen complaints by owners who had their enclosures or the installation area around the meters damaged by installers. And just in case we want to think that these installation people really are correct, they get 2 weeks training, they're sent into the field, they're expected to install 40 a day, and if they do better than that, they get a bonus. So just in case you're worried about whether or not they're taking the time to do it right in these old buildings, they're being offered a bonus for speed. So that's my observation for you. I have no faith in your honesty. I have no faith in the quality of the workmanship because of what I've seen. So that's just my personal experience.
I just want to comment on the last speaker. I respect your position to feel how you feel about my company, our company. I understand you may have talked to somebody in the field. I will tell you that it's not true that we cut back on maintenance. I work in downtown San Francisco. I serve the downtown section as part of, I serve the entire system in terms of business customers. They won't tolerate systems that break down. And we've had millions and millions of dollars on cable replacement and transformer replacement. That was a horrific event with the woman in San Francisco. And I think you can, again, check our website, check CPUC, and see our investment levels on our infrastructure. And we have not cut our maintenance in half. But thank you for your opinion.
Next speaker.
I just want to say that I think it's great that we have the Q&A and you can express your opinions, but I'd be careful in mischaracterizing what goes on or who said what, and just be careful, because if you don't give the whole picture and you give anecdotes, it just sends the wrong message.
Why? She's more trustworthy than everybody
Next.
else.
I was referring to that previous speaker who mischaracterized what we had, our conversation.
You didn't say that to her.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Connie Kiera. I'm a San Rafael resident, and I have 2 questions. The first is to give you a little background. I've been in the field of technology and computers for 35 years. First as a manager and vice president of a large company, and subsequently about the last 15 years as a computer consultant. The types of projects I worked on a lot of times involve cost reduction and efficiency improvement, so I have every sympathy for PG&E trying to improve their operations. However, in the last several years I've become electrically sensitive and subsequently have developed cancer, which has been removed, and there has been no reoccurrence. I unfortunately cannot just blindly support the smart meter, because I have taken a lot of measures to protect my home. And my electrical panel and my gas meter are within a few feet of my home office, and my knee, specifically the gas meter, is about 1.5 feet away from my knee, which is where the cancer was. So my approach over the years has always been to deal with these types of things with problem resolution. And my question, the first one is, there have been people who have complained of accuracy. You say it's not inaccurate, but people have complained of that. People have also complained of being sensitive. My question is, has there been any analysis to correlate the people who have complained with environments where there are the street lighting, those duckbill type street lighting, which historically have had a lot of complaints of high frequency in the neighborhood. Or amplifiers. I understand it's called amplifiers. I'm not sure your Wellington person referred to there may or may not have amplifiers put on the telephone lines. And this may deal with whether or not there's going to be drive-by readings or whether the readings will transmit directly to your offices. They did say in remote locations they are considering doing drive-by. So my first question is, has there been any analysis or will there be any analysis to try to figure out why there are complaints of billing inaccuracies or sensitivity?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about your cancer. I'm glad to hear it appears to be in remission. Let me see if I can break your question into two parts. There's the part on billing accuracy, which I covered a little bit, and then there's the part on testing around not billing accuracy, but that's around health effects, I guess, resulting from sensitivities.
I'm assuming the two go hand in hand, but that
Okay, so on the billing accuracy, and I'm referring to the meters themselves, the structure report, again, commissioned by the CPUC, indicated that the meters themselves are accurate. That's not to say that we didn't have customers that had high bills and had valid complaints. Absolutely did. But the structure report also did conclude that they were not due necessarily to the meters. They were due to a combination of a confluence of high temperature days out in the San Joaquin Valley, increased rate and tiered rates. In some cases, we had care program customers who normally get a discount depending on their economic bracket, not re-opting for those programs. And so these things combining to result in higher bills, but not due to the accuracy of the meters themselves.
Installation errors?
Installation errors and min errors was a factor, absolutely, and that's covered pretty deeply in the report as well. So I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that we don't have high bills and people are complaining because their smart meter came in and now they have a high bill. Those things happen, but it didn't happen because of the meters themselves were inaccurate. It was because of human errors.
So you don't think there's environmental effects
Now,
that might reside in the area before the smart meters?
So let me address that second piece there. I think you're pretty well aware of PG&E's position on it, and I don't want to go ad nauseam on it. Having said that, we also want to respect our customers' position on this. I mean, you have lived through terrible things and back again, and I can't sit here and deny that. That would be wrong. That would not be right. And I think that's part of what's factoring into our company, and Peter Garvey, our chairman, stating, I think in the last week or so, that we will actively look at different options in respect to our customers have given us feedback. Fairfax has given us feedback, and we're taking that into account to see if there are viable options that might be out there, and work that out, with the CPUC and so forth like that. And we're at the beginning stages of that. So.
And that leads into my second question. For those of us who have put on the signs, and Wellington has come by and not put the smart meters on, oops, I don't know if you heard me. For those of us who have opted out by putting those signs up on both our gas and electrical panel, and Wellington has come by and they have not installed a smart meter.
Right.
I am now getting, I did that, and I am now getting phone calls, I'm getting via mail, I'm getting solicitations that I need to call in and schedule it. Because I had phoned in before the installation saying, I have a problem, I want to find out what the solutions are, I want a personal involvement on any installation, and they're hounding hounding me to schedule it to put it in. Now, what are my options to wait until you come up with these?
Well, and I apologize, you're in San Rafael or not?
Yeah, I'm actually in San Rafael.
So, yeah, we voluntarily rescheduled in Fairfax. Right now, I mean, there is not an opt-out.
Well, I don't know if I used the term correctly. I put a sign up that says no one is allowed to put a smart meter on this electrical panel or on the gas meter. I had signs on each. And Wellington came by, they
Right.
saw the signs, they were told that if they see the signs, they're not supposed to put the smart meters on, and they did not. They did put it on every other house in the neighborhood.
Sure.
But I'm more concerned with the proximity of the gas meter and the electrical panel to my knee. And so my concern is, how do I get classified as don't bother her until we come up with some alternative?
Well, I think officially what we would do is we would reschedule you later in the deployment, and maybe what we can do is take your name offline here
Okay.
and follow up with you specifically to your case.
Okay.
Mark Bell, 63 years ago. This is a really good book. It's called Outrageous Misconduct, The Asbestos Industry on Trial by Paul Brodeur. I believe all the PG&E people here should definitely read this book. Some of the interesting things are, in 1946, the American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists gave the threshold limit value for asbestos dust at 5 million particles per cubic foot recommendation. This was also approved by Professor Philip Drinker of the Harvard School of Public Health, along with Dr. Walter Fleischer and several colleagues. The current NIOSH and they even state that it's not acceptable, is 0.01 particles of asbestos is safe. So when you tell us that the FCC says this, the FDA, wow, you want to talk about FDA involvement with the pharmaceutical industry, that we're supposed to believe those figures? Well, I'm looking at this going, wow, they thought asbestos was safe. Even though 30 years before that they knew it wasn't. They fought it tooth and nail for 50, 60, 70 years, screwing people over when they knew it was killing their own employees. So my question, or one of my questions, I guess, would be, since corporations now have the rights as a person, what if you're wrong? Do we get to have all of you up for murder or injury? Do you all go to court? Can you all be executed for murder, knowing that this has happened? Knowing that you knew but refused to present that to the people? That's one question. Another question that was not answered is what's to keep us safe from PG&E sending trucks down streets when you have smart meters and pinging them to raise our rates? Where's our protection from that? I didn't get an answer. I've asked that question twice. Also, you talk about lower costs and saving money. Well, why are you raising the rates on us so that people out in the valley can have more air conditioning for cheaper? We're the people who conserve. Fairfax represents a tiny drop of all the energy consumed on the grid. A tiny drop. I'd like to know the percentage of what we represent on the grid. Most people don't have air conditioning. Most people have solar displays. What's our actual energy drain on the grid? What's so important about Fairfax that you have to wire up this entire community when it's obvious that we don't want it?
Thanks.
Really, I have more. Is my time up already?
Were you going to answer to this?
I think there are more comments than questions, but thank you.
Did you have no answers? You don't want to answer anything?
Yeah, if people die, are you all ready to be tried for murder? Simple question.
I think I respect where you're coming from. I understand your concern. And I'm not going to stand up here and say I'm going to be tried for murder when I disagree with the foundation of your question.
But you'd be willing, right?
No, Mark, please, you're done. Thank you.
Well, how about my other question? I was to protect us from them sending a truck down and pinging the meters and having us pay more. Well, be the first time.
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. The intention of the automated meters is to provide analytical data that provides information to customers so they can actually reduce their energy costs, not to increase rates. In PG&E, you may or may not be aware, but we actually have a regulatory structure that decouples our electric and gas revenues from how we earn money for shareholders. And that incents us to basically help our customers reduce their energy usage for purposes of cost savings as well as greenhouse gas reduction. So that's pretty unique to California, and I thank the PUC for setting that up for us. Thank you very much.
Next speaker, please.
So, I don't understand. I thought that Fairfax there was a moratorium here for smart meters and that they were not supposed to be installed. Is that true? Or
So it is true that there is a moratorium that the council did pass. It is also true that California utilities are regulated are regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission, and therefore a decision to move forward or not move forward with smart meters is not a decision legally of a local city or community. It is the California Public Utilities Commission that determines that. We have voluntarily rescheduled our deployment in Fairfax, again, to follow through with our commitment to listen to the community concerns, take those into account as we look further at our deployment in Fairfax and other areas.
so are you going to continue respecting that moratorium then?
I think right now there are no plans to move forward in Fairfax. That could change in the weeks and months ahead. I think we'll take into account what we've been hearing here, as well as other options that we're looking into that we talked about earlier. And then at some point when we make a decision on what we'll be doing going forward, we'll obviously inform the council and the community as well. But right now, there are no plans to further deploy in Fairfax for the time being.
All California utilities are mandated by having smart meters deployed by the end of 2012 to every customer. So unless there's another option out there that either PG&E comes up with or and brings to the PUC for consideration, they're actually mandated to have smart meters completely deployed by the end of 2012. So is Edison, so is San Diego Gas and Electric.
Wire them, they don't have to be wireless. CPUC could change that.
If there's something in front of the commission that says that it should be changed, and there's the administrative law judge looks at it, and there will be a decision and a process, the commission could then vote on it. But right now, there is no such thing.
Where does the mandate come from?
Okay. We're going to take comments from the podium and not from the audience in general.
Let's see, my other question was, does it have to be an area house? Couldn't it be? Because the purpose of this, the benefit from this is that you can then see how much power is being used in this area, so that then you can see maybe combine it with how much is used in another area. So does it need to be in every house? Could you have it just for a neighborhood or something, or a town? Or something?
I think the original decisions for the three utilities was that it would go to every single house. Every single customer would have smart meters by the end of 2012. Now, if the commission will always look at something that's in front of it to consider. So if there's an application that someone files and says, here's another option, then the commission has to look at that and go through the process to see if that makes sense. And if it does, the 5 commission panel will vote on it. But right now, there's the county and city of San Francisco that filed for a moratorium. An administrative law judge issued a decision denying that moratorium. The county and city of San Francisco's request was based on the assumption that the smart meters were inaccurate. So there was a study done, and the ALJ looked at that and said, since inaccuracy is not an issue, the moratorium is a no-go. Now, the commission has not voted on that yet.
Wouldn't it achieve the same thing though? I mean,
I'm sorry?
Would it achieve the same thing if there's a reading just for like a whole town? Wouldn't it achieve the same thing in the purpose of being able to regulate?
Well, the whole idea of smart meters and smart grid, and the idea of a smart meter is to give the customer more information so you can reduce your usage ultimately. That's the general idea, is to reduce peak usage, to reduce overall usage, and if we can give you the information available, and make the information available to you, you can potentially reduce your usage by even a small portion, but collectively, that small portion amounts to a lot of money. And then we don't have to order the utilities to build power plants or buy additional sources of electricity.
Well, but it just gives the reading for just all the household usage, so not.
But if we give it, the idea is to give you your information, and then you can see that, well, you know, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm using a lot of electricity. Maybe I can lower that a little bit. If everyone collectively realizes that at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, they're using a lot of electricity, and I'm using a general hypothetical. You reduce your usage by a very small amount. That then collectively is a huge amount of electricity, and then we don't have to plan for additional sources of electricity. We don't have to go, the utilities don't have to buy the electricity. We don't have to order them to buy the electricity.
Okay, so now I'm done with my time. Do I still have any time left?
One more question.
Did you want to come now and talk? Because I think I'm done now.
Alexander, you used half your time when you were up before?
I used 2.5 minutes of mine.
Yes.
I'm sure my classes aren't going to take up 2.5 minutes.
According to my clock.
All right, fine. Well, there are so many things, I wanted to make comments on things that I've heard that I believe are inaccurate that were stated before, but I don't take the time to do that. I'm speaking on behalf of the Dictatorial Institute. Thank you. One comment is with regard to this possibility for electric hypersensitivity sufferers using fiber optics instead of wireless transmissions. We, along with other organizations, have discussed that possibility with a number of people having an EHS disability. We all agree that this option, while a small step in the right direction, is still grossly inadequate and unacceptable. It would still not protect sufferers from pulse-microwave radiation exposure from all the other meters in their neighborhood, which by design will still be repeating all the other signals nearly continuously, nor from the banks of as many as 40 meters stacked side by side inside or outside apartment buildings, nor from PG&E's street-side antennas as well. This continuing exposure will not only be indoors, but also experienced in sufferers' yards or while walking down the street. Further, since development of EHS symptoms can happen slowly and imperceptibly due to cumulative exposure, PG&E's supposed solution would do nothing to protect everyone else from continuing to be exposed 24/7, including fetuses during their entire gestation period. One thing independent scientists are clear about is that attempts at remediation after symptoms have begun to be experienced are never as successful as prevention of the exposure in the first place. This is a clear reason why the precautionary principle needs to be applied here, not only for the sake of humans, but also for honeybees, the birds, the trees, and other living non-human species that are unable to protect themselves. At the major presentation just before Thanksgiving by global scientists in San Francisco studying this issue, independent research studies were referenced pointing to harm to these species from exposure to pulse microwave radiation from cell antennas and Wi-Fi. But those installations are only scattered here and there, whereas smart meter transmissions will be everywhere and inescapable. That's why speakers at the program insisting that the WHO and FCC guidelines are hopelessly outdated and inadequate, included one of the founders of the Natural Resources Defense Council. By the way, it was mentioned at that conference that, just as one example, the European Parliament, I think it was in 2009, voted something like 522 to 16, I think were the numbers, after hearing testimony from numerous international scientists, as well as looking at all the literature that was clear that these standards were inadequate and needed to be substantially revised downward. At the time. Just mention, you folks haven't mentioned anything about equipment interference. There have been many anecdotal reports of this problem. The San Jose Mercury News has reported on that, as well as a number of other media sources. And I'm probably out of time, so unfortunately there's not time to contest some of the other things you said. Thank you.
How you doing? Lou Ricardo, 21 Lima Road, Fairfax. This is the second time I came to one of these meetings, and I noticed pretty much that a lot of the same people come up and talk all the time. Some of them are not Fairfax residents. There's a guy from Forest Knolls, another person from Point Reyes. And if they're really concerned with this, they should go to the county and raise hell at the county level rather than come here in Fairfax. But they may go to all of these meetings all over so they can, tell their story about how much they hate the smart meter. That's just one thing. But we should at least just listen to the people from Fairfax, because that's what this meeting is for. What I want to say, I don't see how many people work for PG&E. How many guys work for PG&E? So they're either retired or still working, I guess. Because I've been retired now for almost 24 years. I was born in San Francisco in 1925 in the Glen Park district. And I can remember when I was a little kid, we had one light in each room. And some of them had pull cords, some of them, we were lucky we had a switch. One light. Okay, look at today. See what's happening today. How many lights do we have in each room? How many TVs in each room? You got to think of what's happened here in California. And so what I come up to talk about was, why do we need these smart meters? Well, it's not PG&E. It's not PG&E smart meters. A lot of people are all blaming PG&E, and these poor people come up here to try and explain this thing. But I've worked for PG&E for 35 years. I started in 1950. I worked 5 years in the meter shop. I know all about meters. They're the same meters that we had then, except for the emitting the 1 watt transmission that goes to a pole within a mile of that meter. And somebody wanted to know, well, where is the transmitters at? Well, there's one up in by the Cascades, there's another one out by Olima Road. I know where they are. But what I did is I worked on a cruise. I worked overnight many, many times on storms. And I know what happens when the storm cuts the power off for 2 or 3 days. Once we restore power, sometimes we'll restore the power in the middle of the night. And I see him throw that final switch and see all the lights go on. 3 o'clock in the morning, because everybody's got their lights on. The refrigerators go on. And then pretty soon the fuse blows because of the demand at that time of night. So we have to put a higher fuse up there and then try it again to get everybody lit. And I went through all this and worked my butt off, working on a crew. And then I went to Heels Engineering College and I got a degree. And after I worked out of the meter shop, I was a senior engineer in the engineering department. And I'm pretty familiar with transmission and distribution systems in California and pretty much all over. And when I worked in the engineering department, that's when the housing boom started in the 50s, 60s. And I made up jobs, underground jobs and overhead jobs to serve all of Green Bay. Green Bay was nothing but a big ranch. And all these subdivisions all come online. And as they come online, we had to notify San Francisco on a monthly basis of all that increased load so that the company could keep track of how much more power they're going to need to supply all this new power. So, there's a lot to this stuff. And so you say now, well, why have we got all these smart meters? Well, why has PG&E got these smart meters? Well, PG&E's not the only one that got the smart meters. San Diego Light and Power, Edison in Los Angeles, they're all got these smart meters. You think that the only one that's getting them is Fairfax? It's crazy. And matter of fact, they're going to be all over the United States, and they are all over the United States. And the reason they're on there is to keep up with the demand. And they want to know, they want people to use power at certain times, and that smart meter's going to let them do that. And it's also going to let them know when there's an outage. And there's a lot of things that are coming from this that are good. And I just want to let you know that that's the way I feel. When I was in World War II, I was on a sub chaser, and there were 165 people on it. And we had 2 huge diesel engines that ran the ship. And we also had an electric room where we had 2 generators, and we only used 1 generator at a time. But in the morning, when you're working down in the engine room, in the morning about 6 o'clock, you had to get that other generator going. Otherwise, all the lights were going to go down because the cooks were going down the galley and they turned on all those electric ranges. And if you didn't get that other generator going, then you're just going to have a big dim out.
Thanks.
It's 20,
okay?
It's 20.
And so this is what everybody remembers.
Lou, I'm sorry for your time is up. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you let this other guy talk twice, and I've seen some people come up here for almost 15 minutes.
Well, but they were getting questions answered. I'm timing people.
Okay, but I just want to let them know that this is what these smart meters are for. And, I feel sorry for these
If I
people.
can say, I just want to thank you, Lou, for your service to our country in the war, and thank you for your service to PG&E.
My name is Rebecca, and I'm a resident of Fairfax. And what I want to say is, we understand that it's not just PG&E that's putting in smart meters. However, we expect regulatory agencies to really be public agencies. And the problem, it seems, in our society, that we have a revolving door in these regulatory agencies. People move from corporate to regulatory, corporate to regulatory. So when I'm told that the FCC is protecting my health, the CPUC is protecting our health and our communities, and the FDA and the EPA, and on and on and on. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. I mean, I know that Commissioner Peavy was once the head of Edison, and you can go down the list. And I think also the stress that is here, just this stress alone in this community, knowing that our environment and our bodies, our adult bodies, our child bodies, our infant bodies, have to yet again remediate something else. I bet you everybody in this room takes their antioxidants, takes their supplements, does their exercise, quits smoking, moderates their drinking, and reads practically a textbook a year to stay on top of what we now are required as humans to stay on top of, to keep a healthy body, to prevent breast cancer, to prevent prostate cancer, to prevent brain cancer. Okay? We have genetically modified organisms that we now have to remediate. I know so many people who now have gluten allergies. Now, the reason that we have gluten allergies is because the wheat has been hybridized to such a degree, that it reacts in our bodies to where we cannot absorb nutrition. And I'm bringing this up because I believe that this is really the stress over the smart meter. You talk to any middle schooler or any high schooler, and they'll tell you that, oh, Mommy, today we learned that the environmental toxic load that we now have to carry to live on this planet is almost beyond what is we are capable of. We know that these systems are failing. So that is my question to the CPUC. Given the load, the pesticide load, the GMO load, and what the hell is this up in the sky all the time, the chemtrails, just so look out there, crisscrossing the sky. No one will talk to us even about that, okay? And, at what point are we going to accept that we are a compromised species and we can no longer tolerate a ubiquitous, outpouring of some kind of technologies? You talk about the FCC and cell phones. This planet is covered with cell phones before anyone took the time to really study that. And now the conflict of interest is so great. How do we possibly overcome that? Okay, I respect everyone here, but what I have a problem with is to the degree that we are willing to compromise each other for profit, to the degree that a regulatory agency is willing to give, what I heard from a PG&E employee was that PG&E went out to find private investment for smart meters. But that didn't work out. And then they went to the CPUC, who then said, yes, we'll make sure that the money comes from all of us, from our rates. But no one asked us if we are willing to take on another load, yet another load for our bodies. How much more? How much more can we take? Does anyone even consider what this does to the soil organisms? Or what it is cumulatively when you saturate entire communities like this? I don't think that, I didn't hear answers to that, and I heard a lot of questions in those lines. And I don't get what the smirk is.
Rebecca, your time.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes!
Anastasia Sheldon, formerly of Fairfax. I moved in May, which seemed like a good idea at the time. I now live in the county in Sleepy Hollow, and one of the main reasons I'm here tonight, along with somebody from San Rafael, somebody from Lagunitas, somebody from West Marin, somebody from Kenfield, is because these good people were willing to have hearings so that we could actually address you. So I haven't been able to get through at the supervisory level, and I apologize to the person who feels like we're taking up some of the time, but I want you to know that whatever you are doing for this town, which is fabulous, that you're at least listening. We tried to have a meeting in Sleepy Hollow. It was a dog and pony show. There are a lot of issues that have been brought up today. I don't need to go over all of them, but I want you to know that there are a lot of people in this county that need to have the same kind of protections that you're considering for this town, and that I really want to know, what are we going to do about the cell towers? You've got them up everywhere. Are they active yet? Yes, they are.
I happen to know one is right next to somebody who is recovering from brain cancer. And I understand that you do not believe this is affecting you. How many of you from PG&E have children, are pregnant, or planning on getting pregnant, and think that this is fine? You need to really look into it for your own safety. That's what I want to bring up. What I would very much like to walk away from tonight, I would like contact information, how I, as a county resident, am going to be able to get in touch with the CPUC, besides what's on the website. Can I reach you? Can I reach you at PG&E? How am I going to protect my neighborhood? I need answers, and I'd like them before I leave tonight. Thank you.
It's on. Yeah.
Hi there, my name is Sarah Riley. I am an healthcare practitioner, and I am well versed on the science. I will not be reviewing that this evening. I thank you all, PG&E, for being here this evening, and I truly hope that
We are truly being heard and not judged. My fear is that we are being judged. I have electrical hypersensitivity, and that is not a fringe illness. It is a condition of overexposure. It hurts. I burn. I have incredible deep bone, tissue, and brain pain in the presence of electromagnetic radiation and radio frequency. And it didn't come out of nowhere. It came from overexposure in my living environment. I need to have an EMR and radio frequency-free living environment. I've worked very hard to do so. I've created an environment in which I can live in my home to be able to sustain the outside world. One of the many concerns I have around the smart meter issue is that healthy people are getting sick. They're having adverse health symptoms after the installation of their smart meters. It's happening. How are those people being addressed? That is my first question.
We're not aware of folks who are being impacted health-wise as a result of their smart meter. So I don't know how to answer that.
You're not aware? People have contacted PG&E complaining about their health complaint.
I think I hear what you're saying. We are here to listen. We're not disagreeing that you or others are having health effects.
That's not my question. My question is,
what are we doing about it?
what are you doing about the people who are having adverse health impacts since the installation of their smart meters? What are you doing
So I think
for them?
that feedback is weighing into part of our decision to reschedule some areas and some individuals, and also look at the options which we talked about earlier. Looking at different options.
What are the options?
We don't know what those options are that are viable at this point.
So what will you do when I myself am in a painful state and need to leave my home in the event there is a smart meter installed on my home? What will be your course of action, or do we have to wait until we know what our course of action is?
Our course of action right now, we're taking individual customers that mention they don't want to have the smart meter installed, or we're rescheduling back to later in the deployment, and hopefully by that time we'll have some of those options.
How much later?
It depends.
On what?
On how, I don't have a good answer to that. I think it's on a case-by-case basis.
What determines the case-by-case basis?
The individual need. So I have.
How do you determine the individual need?
Do you have a smart meter installed now?
Not currently, but they're being installed around me, and I do live in Fairfax.
Are you in Fairfax?
Yes, I am.
So we're not deploying in Fairfax right now for the foreseeable future until we can take this into account.
There are smart meters on the road behind me that have been installed and are active according to the meter reader that I recently spoke to.
Okay, I know we have installed some smart meters in Fairfax. I think that's pretty well known. I think there's 200 and something of these things that were installed as part of rotational maintenance. Manufacturers don't even make the analog meters at this point, so when we replace meter, if we put in the smart meter, it's just not necessarily pinging or talking to the network. We're still manually reading those meters like any other meter. So I think that's accurate.
These meters, no, that is incorrect. These meters are actually not being read by the meter reader. They're not able to read these meters, these smart meters, because they are being wirelessly transmitted to the stations. That's from a PG&E employee.
Maybe we can talk to you after this and get your name and find out where you're at and look into where these individual meters are at and so forth.
What is the protocol for me calling PG&E and getting pushback on the list, and my neighbors as well?
I think the protocol right now is you call our 5,000 number, indicate where you're at and what you're interested in.
That has not been effective, and according to many people that have also called.
Okay, well then, in this case, we'll take your name and see what we can do with your situation. Right now, we're not deploying in Fairfax.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to, Sierra, I'm going to take you round two.
She's talking, I got like 10 seconds.
Sierra.
I've got 10 seconds. We don't need smart meters to conserve, we need education. And the other one is just an aside. Our human electrical system, our DNA is about 6 feet long if you unstrand it. Look at an old rabbit ears and look at like antennas. We are antennas. We're in the system. We are affected and we are a part of all of this.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Sandy Ross. I don't totally see how the smart meters really will take care of our usage because you don't get the information until the next day. And the other thing is, I'd just be happy to have a postcard in the mail that told me at what time of the day usage was high, and if I had some usage at that time, I'd change it. You said that you weren't going to have anything else on your lines, but MMWD is ready to piggyback on it. Did you know that?
I personally have had conversations with the Marin Municipal Water District, and some of my colleagues have spoken to them as well. They are interested in how the technology works, but we are not in any kind of consideration of carrying their meter data on our network.
Can you guarantee that you never will?
No.
Okay, a couple of weeks ago, a book called Disconnect was launched at the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco, and it really exposed the truth about how the telecom industry has continuously falsified research and to make the emanations sound less, and that the independent research consistently finds that there are harmful effects from EMF and RFRs. And then last week there was another conference there, an international one, and researchers really talked about how we were affected because our bodies are electric. And Professor Magda Havas of Canada has a simple test involving heart rate variability, and basically it shows that the heart rate goes up it gets essentially doubles in the presence of a telephone, for example. And a couple of really interesting ones, Sterling Childs from Yale talked about the effect on the biota and the navigation of the birds and the bats. But the one that really riveted me was Martin Blank from Columbia University. And he talked about the fact that DNA is a fractal antenna, and that the different coils react to different parts of the EMF frequency. And that's why we all have a bad time, and that's why we have different times, because we each have different coils. And he also spoke about the brain-blood barrier being broken with EMF and RFR. So this is really serious, and I thank you very much in Fairfax for working on it so hard.
Thank you.